21 Most Powerful Martin Luther King Jr. Quotes on Civil Rights. The best inspiring Martin Luther King Jr. quotes on civil rights will inspire you to raise your voice for your fundamental right. Martin Luther King Jr. is best known for his contributions to the American civil rights movement in the 1960s. His most famous speech was "I Have a Dream," which he delivered in 1963, in which he talked about his dream of the United States that is void of segregation and racism. He did countless marches with the help of nonviolence and went to jail. For his work, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. In this article, we are sharing some inspiring thoughts of such a great civil rights hero, which will inspire you to raise your voice for your fundamental right. Martin Luther King Jr. Quotes on Civil Rights. Read the below Martin Luther King Jr. quotes on civil rights that will help you to fight your rights. 1. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Martin Luther King Jr. 2. There is no gain without struggle. Martin Luther King Jr. 3. A right delayed is a right denied. Martin Luther King Jr. 4. A man who won't die for something is not fit to live. Martin Luther King Jr. 5. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies. Martin Luther King Jr. 6. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Martin Luther King Jr. 7. No person has the right to rain on your dreams. Martin Luther King Jr. 8. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Martin Luther King Jr. 9. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Martin Luther King Jr. 10. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Martin Luther King Jr. 11. We must come to see that the end we seek is a society at peace with itself, a society that can live with its conscience. Martin Luther King Jr. 12. People fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. Martin Luther King Jr. 13. One has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. Martin Luther King Jr. 14. Not only will we have to repent for the sins of bad people, but we also will have to repent for the appalling silence of good people. Martin Luther King Jr. 15. The time is always right to do the right thing. Martin Luther King Jr. 16. The choice is not between violence and nonviolence, but between nonviolence and non-existence. Martin Luther King Jr. 17. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. Martin Luther King Jr. 18. Our scientific power has outrun our spiritual power. We have guided missiles and misguided men. Martin Luther King Jr. 19. Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. Martin Luther King Jr. 20. It does not matter how long you live, but how well you do it. Martin Luther King Jr. 21. Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. Martin Luther King Jr. I hope you liked the above Martin Luther King Jr. quotes on civil rights. Don't forget to mention the best line that you liked most from the above lines in the comment box below.